Hi, everybody. I'm Janet Spillman with the Sonoma County Transportation Authority and the SCTA, along with the Department of Health Services. Laurel, show your face, please. Are partnering in the Vision Zero program for Sonoma County. Tonight, we have a public workshop on the draft action plan that was formulated by both SCTA, DHS, with our consultants, MIG and Tool Design. And with the help of our Vision Zero Advisory Committee. And at this point, I will turn it over to Quinn Kelly of Tool Design to take us through the action plan. Thanks, Quinn.
Great, thank you, Janet. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. So yeah, good evening, everyone. Yeah, my name is Quinn Kelly. I'm a project manager at Tool Design. I'm joined this evening by my colleague Phil, who will help ensure that our meeting runs smoothly. You should be able to send him a chat if you have any technical issues. And my colleague Sophia is also here to help record all of your questions and comments. And we also, luckily, you can ignore the message in Spanish on the screen here because we do in fact have a interpreter here. Unfortunately, we aren't able to have a separate audio channel because we weren't aware that we were going to have that until right now, basically. But Juan is here to help, and if you have any further comments after the meeting, you can, as you see, you can send them to info@scta.ca.gov. We also have auto transcription enabled, so you'll see subtitles appearing at the bottom of your screen. That is an accessibility feature, but if you would like to turn it off, you can do so by clicking on live transcript and then hide subtitle. So with that, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here. Oh yes, thank you. So Juan, could you go ahead and introduce yourself in Spanish and let folks know how to connect with you via chat?
Sí, desafortunadamente no tuvimos el canal separado para tener la interpretación simultánea esta noche, pero lo que vamos a hacer después de que acaben la presentación, puede usted hacer preguntas si tiene preguntas o dudas o alguna pregunta de lo que miró. Puede poner su pregunta en la charla o en el chat y lo vamos a leer y luego se lo podemos contestar cuando llegue el tiempo de preguntas y respuestas. Gracias.
Thanks. Let's see. So yeah, with that, I will jump into our presentation. So we're going to start with a couple of poll questions. So just to get a sense of who we have here tonight. So if you could launch that first poll. So this first poll is actually 2 questions. So if you could scroll down, you'll see both questions 1 and 2 about where you're joining us from, as well as what means of transportation you use regularly. If anyone's having any questions about how to respond to the poll, you can message Phil in the chat for some assistance with that. Okay, looks like it's about all we're getting for now. Great. So yeah, looks like we have a very strong representation from Santa Rosa here this evening, and a couple folks from Petaluma, and others scattered about. And then a good mix of experiences in terms of transportation modes that people have used and experienced in Sonoma County. So that's great. Yeah, so why Vision Zero? So every year in Sonoma County, people lose family, friends, neighbors, and colleagues to preventable crashes on our roads. Between 2016 and 2020, traffic crashes killed 176 people in Sonoma County and left 924 more with life-changing injuries. This map shows the location of every fatal crash from 2020 by travel mode, conveying both a quantitative story about where these crashes occur and a collection of more personally salient stories about individual lives lost. And that sort of captures what we're trying to do with this plan, is really share with folks the gravity of this problem, and also really understand that no loss of life on Sonoma County's roads is acceptable. So Vision Zero is a new approach to traffic safety. It basically says, no severe and fatal crashes should be accepted as inevitable. Also acknowledges that these crashes don't affect all communities equally. Human drivers are imperfect, and we have to plan for that. And it also really, Vision Zero focuses on fatal and severe crashes, the ones that tear apart people's lives. Finally, Vision Zero is about collective responsibility through a safe systems approach. So we started this process by analyzing the crash data from across Sonoma County. And you can see here the top 4 crash factors. These are the same 4 factors, whether we look at all crashes or specifically at fatal and severe injury crashes. So just going down the list, impaired driving. So we want to try to address impaired driving by providing transportation options and keeping impaired drivers from getting behind the wheel. Unsafe turns. So we can't correct for all dangerous driving behavior, but we can improve intersection and signal design to help reduce the incidence of crashes from unsafe turns. Unsafe speed. So higher speeds increase both the risk of a crash and the likelihood that a crash will result in severe injury or death. And we do have a lot of tools to help address high speeds and speeding on our roads. Right-of-way violations, driver education, signage, and roadway design can all help reduce right-of-way violations and the resulting crashes. So Vision Zero uses this data to identify appropriate countermeasures, whether that's traffic calming, signal modifications, or drunk driving prevention programs. Vision Zero takes a public health approach that seeks to address the root causes of traffic deaths and injuries. So I show this graphic really to bring home the last point about speed. As you can see, a vehicle traveling 20 miles an hour that hits a person walking has a 10% chance of killing or severely injuring them, compared to a 70% chance for a vehicle traveling at 40 miles an hour. So sticking with the analysis of traffic data, this map is Sonoma County's high injury network, which shows all of the roadways and intersections where users are at higher risk. This map was created by examining the location, frequency, severity, and mode of crashes along the road network. And it's used to identify areas where safety investment should be prioritized. So with that, I'm going to jump into our next poll question. This is for you. What do you think are the most important safety issues, traffic safety issues facing Sonoma County today? You can choose up to 3. Oh, great. We're getting a few more respondents on this one. All right. Looks good. So yeah, you know, what we're hearing is consistent with a lot of what we've seen in the data. Speeding, distracted driving, and a lack of protected bike lanes and other pedestrian and bike safety infrastructure are really perceived by a lot of folks to be, you know, the most important traffic issues facing Sonoma County. And what I'm about to show you, this is the results of feedback collected by Sonoma County in fall of 2021 from nearly 2,500 community members about traffic safety. As you can see, these results are pretty consistent with the poll results that we just saw. So the top 3 responses were poorly maintained roads, bike lanes and sidewalks, speeding, and distracted driving. So based on this feedback, we've tailored our goals and actions that are included in this plan to eliminate distracted driving, create safer speeds, and to build and maintain safe streets for everyone. Another really important part of Vision Zero is, you know, thinking about equity. So this plan really delves into the equity implications of traffic deaths and severe injuries. We examine inequitable access to transportation and housing that results in disparities in crash victims across race, socioeconomic status, travel mode, and geography. Because many neighborhoods in Sonoma County are low density, with few jobs or destinations in walking distance and limited access to public transportation, most households must drive. The typical county household travels 2,200 miles by vehicle each year at a cost of more than $1,500. For people who cannot afford to drive, cannot drive, or prefer not to, using the county's walking, bicycling, and transit networks presents other challenges. When SCTA was developing its recent comprehensive transportation plan, they conducted a number of listening sessions at which participants identified a need for better walking and cycling facilities, as well as public transportation services. Different communities are also affected unequally by traffic enforcement. Some people do not report crashes due to a fear of interacting with law enforcement. Others are disproportionately burdened by penalties and fines. This plan acknowledges the important role of law enforcement to accomplish Vision Zero goals, while also focusing resources on actions that will not place a disproportionate burden on these communities. So on the map you see on the left here, we use spatial analysis to show the correlation between Sonoma County's most dangerous roadways and intersections and its most underserved communities, and identify strategies to address those disparities. So with that, I'm going to get into the real meat of this plan, which is the goals and the actions. So eliminating traffic fatalities and severe injuries requires a sustained and coordinated effort. And based on what we've heard from the public and key stakeholders, and based on what we see in the crash data, we identified these 6 major goals, which are create safer speeds, eliminate impaired driving, create a culture of safety, build safe streets for all, make vehicles safer, and improve data for effective decision-making. For each of these high-level goals, I've included a sample of the actions included in the plan. I didn't include all of them because some of these goals have a lot of actions, and I don't want to slow us down too much. So the first high-level goal is about creating safer speeds, which is really a key element of any Vision Zero effort. As we talked about, higher speeds increase both the risk of a crash and the likelihood that the crash will result in severe injury or death. Over the past 5 years, speeding drivers caused 4,000 crashes, leading to over 200 serious injuries and 29 deaths in Sonoma County. It's important to note that high-speed roads, regardless of whether the driver is traveling above the speed limit, are a risk factor throughout the county. Travel speeds of 40 to 45 miles an hour see a notably elevated rate of fatal and severe injury crashes relative to lower speeds. So these are a couple of our actions designed to reduce speeding in Sonoma County. So I want to note here that any reduction in speed limit should be accompanied by traffic calming and other design changes that will lower the speed at which drivers will naturally travel. I also want to note that recently passed legislation at the state level will soon give local cities and counties more authority to set speed limits, and thus enable Action 1.2, which is about potentially setting speed limits of 25 miles an hour or lower where appropriate, such as areas around schools, parks, senior centers, and transit stations. So our next poll question: what measures do you think will be most effective to reduce speed-related crashes in Sonoma? Great, I got a question from someone. Where are the questions? These poll questions should come up on your screen. Phil, do you have any other insight in why someone might not be seeing the questions?
It's possible that they clicked off it. The window might be in the background or something, but it should be up on their screen.
I also got a message. I wanted to take a step back. SCTA is the Sonoma County Transportation Authority, and I'm sorry that I dropped that acronym without any explanation. Nancy, I got a message from someone else that the poll questions appeared in front of the attendees screen for them. Okay, I think we can move on from that one. So let's see. Traffic calming, narrow roadways. Yeah, so I think that what I'm hearing here is, consistent with what we've heard in a lot of meetings, which is that, lowering speed limits is important, but it's perhaps more important to make sure that the roadways are designed so that drivers naturally travel at Okay, great. So the next high-level goal is to eliminate impaired driving. So of the 1,300 odd fatal and severe injury crashes in Sonoma County in the last 5 years, nearly a quarter involves someone who is operating a vehicle under the influence. So curbing impaired driving means creating transportation alternatives for people who are consuming alcohol, preventing those with a pattern of impaired driving from getting behind the wheel, and addressing the root causes of alcohol and drug abuse. So these are some of the actions that we're proposing around eliminating impaired driving in Sonoma County. I'm getting a couple of direct messages from folks. If you have any direct feedback that you'd like to add, I would recommend messaging Sophia or Phil, who can record those. I'm having a hard time monitoring the chat as well. But thank you for the feedback. So with that, we have another poll question. So what measures do you think would be most effective to eliminate impaired driving in Sonoma County? Great, y'all are really getting fast at these polls. Okay, so yeah, expanding nighttime transportation and rideshare options. It's definitely something that we'd like to see, and I think there's a lot of been creative approaches in different jurisdictions around safe ride home and designated driver programs, as well as on-demand and microtransit options. Engage businesses about responsible beverage service. I want to highlight this is something that some local law enforcement agencies have been doing already in Sonoma County, and I think it'd be great to see that expanded. But yeah, it's going to take all of these measures to make this change. So the next high-level goal is creating a culture of safety. So this one is really about instilling a sense of shared responsibility for each other's safety. It requires a broad group of stakeholders, and many of the actions focus on youth and young drivers to help develop the next generation of responsible road users. This goal targets dangerous driving behavior contributing to all 4 of the top crash factors: impaired driving, unsafe speed, unsafe turns, and right-of-way violations. So here are some of the actions that we've proposed as part of this goal. So a lot around disseminating effective safety information, and I want to highlight that the safety information is about anti-distraction, but it's also about knowing how to safely share the road with pedestrians and cyclists. For example, a lot of folks don't know that you're required to yield to pedestrians at any crosswalk, whether it's marked or unmarked. And a lot of other people don't realize that when you're passing a cyclist, you have to leave at least 3 feet of space. So these are the kind of messages that's important to get out to the public, in addition to anti-distraction messaging and accurate reporting of crashes to avoid victim blaming. I also want to highlight Sonoma County has a really amazing local Safe Routes to School program that's doing a lot of amazing work. And expanding and supporting this work is really important to help develop the next generation of safe drivers and cyclists and pedestrians. So our next poll: what measures do you think would be most effective to create a culture of safety in Sonoma County? Right. So yeah, strong support for expanding Safe Routes to School program, partnering with local organizations to run safe driving campaigns and anti-distraction messaging campaigns, particularly among youth. I also want to note, I see we have a lot of other responses with this, as well as some of the other poll questions. If you have other ideas that weren't included in here, we would love to hear those after the presentation as part of our Q&A session. So please hold on to those ideas. So the 4th of our main goals is build and maintain safe streets for all. So this goal was identified as the most important step toward Vision Zero by 67% of survey respondents. It's based on the principle that streets should be designed to encourage safe behavior and reduce conflicts between users. And there are dozens of engineering and design measures that have been proven to reduce the quantity and the severity of crashes, ranging from simple things like adding reflective markers to prevent drivers from running into objects, to more complex interventions like raised crosswalks and traffic circles. Here's a sampling of some of our actions that fall under this goal. So updating street design standards, establishing a rapid response team to evaluate and address fatal and severe injury crashes and crash sites. Filling out our bicycle and pedestrian networks and making sure that those facilities are designed for all ages and all abilities. So, the goal is to design a network of bike lanes, sidewalks, and crossings that your grandmother would feel comfortable using. We also want to make sure that we're improving maintenance for all modes, including bike and pedestrian facilities, especially along that high injury network. So our next poll question: what measures would be most effective to build safe streets for all in Sonoma County? All right. So yeah, very strong support for building more bike lanes and sidewalks to close gaps in the network, updating street design standards to reflect latest research and serve all road users. And implementing safety improvements on high-risk streets and intersections. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So our fifth of 6 broad goals is a little bit more narrow in scope. It's about making vehicles safer. So a lot of these is about fairly simple retrofits, such as side guards on large trucks that can help reduce the risk of death or serious injuries for pedestrians and cyclists. And also about staying on top of developments with driverless vehicles to make sure that they prioritize the safety of all road users. And if you're one of the people who says, what the heck is a side guard? This is a little illustration here. So you've likely seen the signs on trucks that say, caution, this vehicle makes wide turns. Side guards are designed with this in mind to keep pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcyclists from being run over by a truck's rear wheels in a side impact collision. So another quick poll question: what measures would be most effective to make vehicles safer? Great, yeah, seeing a lot of support for making fleet vehicles safer with safety features like GPS monitoring and collision warning systems. Yeah, this is also a really important piece of this goal. There's a lot of new technology that can help, again, account for the inevitable driver error that's just with us, but help reduce the severity of those mistakes, or the negative outcomes rather. So our last high-level goal is improving data for effective decision-making. So Sonoma County has already taken a huge step toward improving data with the Vision Zero data dashboard. As part of this plan, we want to identify ways to further improve that data, enrich that data, and get it into the hands of decision makers. So we have a number of actions with that in mind. I want to highlight a couple here. We want to try to partner with local hospitals and trauma centers to pull some of that data. As I mentioned, a lot of crashes go, unreported, but a lot of those folks, still end up in the emergency room. And so we want to be able to incorporate that data into what we know about crashes that are happening in Sonoma County. And another one you see, action 6.5, is about developing a training module for law enforcement to help them better report crashes and investigate them, specifically around the unique attributes that are required to accurately report the circumstances of crashes involving bicyclists, pedestrians, and other vulnerable road users. So our last poll, what measures do you think will be most effective in improving Vision Zero data? Great. Yeah. So strong support for training police officers to effectively report and investigate crashes involving bicyclists, pedestrians, as well as other really important measures. So thank you for sharing. So yeah, what's next? This Vision Zero action plan represents a commitment to an initial set of actions addressing Sonoma County's highest priority traffic safety issues. For individuals, we're going to be including a Vision Zero pledge so they can commit on an individual level to safe driving behavior, which I'll be sharing that on the next slide. For Sonoma County's local jurisdictions, all of the cities, as well as unincorporated Sonoma County, we'll be including a sample resolution that they can bring to their city councils to commit to this work. This resolution will help local jurisdictions also to identify the most impactful and feasible steps for Vision Zero that pertain to their local context. Implementing these actions will require collaboration between a diverse set of organizations and government agencies. And we'll continue to use the Vision Zero website and the data dashboard to evaluate our efforts and track progress toward these Vision Zero goals. So this is the Vision Zero pledge, which I would invite you all to take the pledge. It's at scta.ca.gov/vz/pledge. These are some of the most important things to keep in mind as a driver. Being a driver is a huge responsibility, and it's really important in order to accomplish this work that we have all hands on deck in terms of doing our part to make the Sonoma County roads a safer place. So with that, I would like to open up the meeting for questions and comments. So if you have a question or a comment or a reaction, you can go to the bottom left part of your screen and raise your hand, and Sophia will call on you and invite you to unmute. If you're calling in by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. and *6 to mute or unmute. I also want to say, before we get into this, that we're going to be sending out a link to the next draft of the plan to everyone who registered for this workshop. And that's going to be coming out on February 7th with a 2-week comment period and comments due back by February 21st. So we really look forward to receiving your feedback on that next draft. But we also welcome your comments at any time, including right now. So, yep, raise your hand as soon as you're ready.
Great. We'll start off with the phone calling in. Seems like they're not there.
Well, did you press, whoever that is, can you press *6 to unmute?
I'm being asked to unmute, but I'm not on the phone.
Oh.
So
I'm unmuted.
Oh, great. So go ahead. And
then.
So, yeah, you want me to talk? There's somebody else also. So who do you
Why
want
don't you
to
go
ask
ahead?
the question?
Yeah, we can
Okay, I
go.
appreciate that. Okay, thank you. Yes, I have a number of questions, of course, because in traveling in the roads in the area, you know that there's not enough money to maintain the potholes, which requires people to make unsafe swerves because, as you know, there's quite a bit of expense to broken windshields and cars that are forced out of alignment, which also makes them further unsafe when we're trying to look at safety and road conditions and driving. That's one thing I wanted to bring up. And again, of course, broken windshields don't help with visibility when we're constantly having to replace windshields. I also wanted to find out what the conversation has been about the use of CV cameras to track offenders in high dense driving areas so that offenders that are committing unsafe driving practices can be tracked. I wanted to know the type of cameras that are in use for that right now, besides just the street lights that I know can be used for that. Also, I wanted to know about any discussion that there has and hopefully has been in increased auto insurance premium rates to repeated offenders to certainly make them pay for any continued danger that they cause and could potentially cause to pedestrians and bikers. I also wanted to add this. I know that many people comment about the street calming measures and how there's different types of parking now and medians that jet off the sidewalks along with bike lanes, and people are having to make a right turn, for example, and cross a bike lane. Or worse, you park along the street and you open up your car door and you're nearly run down by a bicyclist. Certainly that would impair somebody exiting a car into the bike lane when they're unaware that someone is either on a skateboard or on some other type of traveling vehicle. I also was noting that many people, particularly older people, could be interested in some type of a EV bike. If there was a trade arrangement that might be being created for, you know, renting or leasing those, because those are very expensive, particularly the tricycles that I think would be beneficial for the older folks if they wanted to go in and buy some groceries. I know that the tricycles are very, very difficult to get, and if you can get a tricycle with an electric motor, or however you call that, they're about $3,500 if you can find one. And of course, the theft rate on those are huge. So are there methods to lock up those bikes if those and when those bikes are used in areas that would be beneficial for reducing fossil fuel use? Also, what about the reduction of gas vehicles in downtown areas? I know many cities throughout the world are not allowing gasoline-powered vehicles in their downtown areas, not only for the improvement of and reduction and increased safety, but for the decrease of pollution. So I'm just wondering how that all works into the already adopted sustainable development plans that all our cities have already adopted. And if this just seems to be another takeoff of those plans that are already in place.
Great.
That would
Yeah, well,
be-
thank you for sharing. Those are all gives us a lot to think about there. I don't know if we have time to respond to all of those, but I will say, yeah, there's definitely a lot of alignment between Vision Zero and a lot of other goals around, yeah, reducing greenhouse gases, you know, improving accessibility for folks to be able to use alternative modes of transportation, whether that be electric bikes or, you know, walking. And yeah, in terms of your comment about potholes, I think that point is very well taken. And, you know, we definitely recognize that improving street maintenance and road maintenance is a very important part of this Vision Zero effort. So thank you for all those comments.
Thanks. So we'll just keep taking questions as they arise. So next on the line, we have Eris Weaver, and after that, we're going to have Taryn Obaid. So please go ahead, Eris.
Hi, I'm Eris Weaver, Executive Director of the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition, and great job that you're doing on this, Quinn. I'm going to try and keep my comments to things that I haven't already commented about in some other previous meeting. I'm curious. I've got 3 comments. One of them I'm a little curious in the polls of what do you think would affect X, Y, or Z, when I know that there's research and data about what actually does affect behavior in different areas. I used to work in the alcohol, tobacco, and other prevention field, and often the things that were the most effective were the least intuitive. So what we all sometimes think is going to make a difference isn't the thing that makes a difference. So that could have been fun to see the responses against the sort of research reality. Number 2, the issue about what would make vehicles safer. I'm old enough to remember when everybody started buying smaller, more gas efficient cars in the 70s. And now over time, every year, the size of new cars just keeps getting bigger and bigger and heavier and heavier. And that's another big factor in how likely you are to die when you get hit by a vehicle. You know, get hit by a Hummer versus get hit by my Prius. It's a very different experience, not just the weight, but also where it hits you. If it hits you lower in your center of gravity, you fall onto the hood. If it hits a big vehicle, hits you at your shoulder or your head and sends you flying onto the pavement. Also, I've learned not that long ago, you know, our auto safety testing in the US only tests for what keeps the people inside the car safe in a crash. It doesn't test what happens, somebody gets hit by the car. And apparently European countries have different standards about what they test. So these are a whole thing that have to be done at the state or federal, you know, level, which is beyond what any of us can actually do here, other than paying attention and talking to our elected officials in the other jurisdictions. And then the third one I want to address is the creating a culture around stuff. And unfortunately, it's like one of the things that is so in Sonoma County is we are our economy is heavily influenced by 2, you know, industries that are, you know, alcohol, cannabis, and, you know, I've been at a memorial for someone who was killed by a drunk driver that was held at a winery, and everybody was drinking and not seeing the issue there. Many nonprofits, including my own, make a lot of our fundraisers or money is made from selling alcohol. So there's broader things that are intertwined with our community and our economy and stuff that's not going to be solved by, you know, teaching kids how to ride their bikes more safely. But I think I'll stop there. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Eris. Yeah, I think as you spoke to, a lot of those issues that you brought up are definitely bigger than Sonoma County. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth thinking about, yeah, what can we do to think about that? You know, cars are getting bigger. They're not really thinking about the non-drivers. And I think issue of drunk driving is a very prickly one. I think that, some of the things that we have laid out here, such as, trying to provide better designated driving or safe ride home services could help with some of that. But yeah, there's definitely some more work to be done in that area. So thank you.
Great. We'll move on to Taryn.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I am a retired analyst and market research expert, and I really like your survey. The inclusion of something really important. I live in Petaluma, and recently we had a presentation on police citation data. Citations of speeding, citations of collisions, and injuries. And the data analytics was a bit messy, pardon my language. It was, it was apparent that there is a huge need for standardizing police reporting and data collection at incidents, at the time of incident, right? And getting really intelligent about all the factors that are involved with collisions, and prioritize, ranking the factors. They're not all equal, but the primary factors, the secondary factors, etc. And then also getting more information around the situation, the context of the incident. And the reason why I mention that is because you are bringing up just perfectly that absolutely needs to be of a higher quality, because without good data, we will never be able to have a good understanding and make good decisions to have the best opportunity to fix the problem. So I wanted to commend you on that. And then I also wanted to mention two things. Number one is in Petaluma, in that same presentation, there was a representation that police citations of speeding and collisions dropped before COVID in 2019 by respectively by 30% and 40%, right? A precipitous drop in enforcement of the speeders and the collision activity. And where I live on a little street that's an offshoot of a larger street, and they're speeding on the larger street for sure, and a lot of side swiping that the police don't come out and report on. One recently happened, and it turns out it was a mother that was drunk and driving and texting with her children in the car, and we had to bend and whatever it is, twist the arm of the police department to get them to come out and write a citation. And then on my street, there are speeders all the time, and it's a teeny street. It's not even a 1/10 of a mile. So the point I want to make with that is I think there's a bigger opportunity in the enforcement realm. I did do some anecdotal investigation and spoke with a couple of police officers, and one reply they gave me that surprised me, and I don't even know if it's true, but I'll offer it up here, is that they are reducing the amount of citations they do specifically for speeding because it doesn't bring revenue back to the city police department. And I don't know how that can be true. I don't know the nuance of it, but I think when you're thinking about process excellence in order for an operation such as a county or local government to be as effective and efficient as possible, we do need to get clear on the dynamic in the police departments around citation of collision and speeding, and to also be more precise in our data collection around that. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, Taryn. Yeah, all very, very important comments. Yeah, I'll save my responses and make sure everyone has time to talk. So,
When could you stop sharing your screen?
Yep.
So we can see each other.
Great. We'll go to Carol next.
Okay. Hi. First, I'd like to say the length of these public comments and how cogent all the points are really shows we need more opportunities to speak publicly like this. I mean, every single person here has had like 3 or 4 points, and at least. And so if you guys can generate more situations like this where we can talk, it would be fabulous. It'd be great. I have 2 points. One is bicycle lanes, which, we need to, the lady who said you have to make a right turn in, go into a bicycle lane to make a right turn. Yeah. Today I had to swerve into the left, the oncoming traffic lane a little bit to not hit the bicyclist. This is on B Street in Santa Rosa. The lane is just too narrow. It wasn't the bicyclist's fault. It was the width of the lane. But what I really want to talk about is Verano Avenue in Sonoma, the city of Sonoma, which I couldn't get in on the poll there. There is one person in Sonoma here. So 2 people died when the traffic was routed off of Arnold when they were fixing the Boys Bridge. Okay, this is, and I really want to be able to prove this, and I was thinking about going through police records, but I don't know. The data, it seems to me that data should be available. There were no fatalities for years and years. Then I had a little girl killed 2 blocks down the street from me on my right, and an old man killed 1 block on my left. And I believe it's totally the amount of traffic from that detour, which is now stopped. But they want to build a 72-unit apartment house right in the same place where these fatalities occurred. And the way it's currently designed, people are going to die. I mean, it's just flat out. We've already seen the proof from the Boys Bridge. They're going to have to change Verano, or they have to change the entrances. They have so I don't know how we do an estimate. I really want to make to the case to the county that people are going to die. So how do I get the histories, and how can I estimate the numbers of cars that are safe on that road, which I think it's really about at its capacity right now. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. Well, I would just, I can't answer all of your questions, but I would say that a great place to start if you're interested in traffic safety issues around where you live is the Sonoma County Vision Zero data dashboard, which I will put a link in the chat, but it's a great place to pull up crash history. And you can see, how many crashes and what kinds of crashes have occurred on streets around the community where you live. So.
Great. So we'll go to Kevin for a question next.
Hi, friends. Kevin Anderson, Sonoma County resident, human being. Great job overall. One thing I wanted to say, and this is a big one, and it's taken me a while to understand, but certainly these big projects, I mean, us urbanists love talking about trains, but let's be honest, those are like trying to hit a home run. Much prefer the Japanese style of hitting singles all day. And so what I would say to that is, instead of a train, bus rapid transit, smaller, less expensive projects that are attainable. And what I really want to get into, and just wondering, my 2 questions are, have you looked into tactical urbanism and quick builds? Much cheaper, much easier to get going. And first and foremost, and most importantly, it gives people a chance to have a say in how things are designed. Something we have not last. So tactical urbanism, quick builds, wondering if those have been examined. And then number 2, I see Beatrice here from the city of Santa Rosa's general SR4 general plan, but making sure Vision Zero is tied into general plans seems like a no-brainer. You're probably already doing it, but just wanted to double check. Thanks, friends.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Rest assured that everything that you just said is in the plan. So we definitely recognize the importance of tactical quick build projects. And yeah, bus rapid transit, obviously a great way to expand transit options. So yeah, thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Moving on to Bernie. Moving on to Bernie next.
I think I got it.
Yep, we hear you.
Great.
Can you hear me okay? I had to unmute the Okay, Bernie Album, I'm a retired teacher, so you're going to hear about education. I'm a longtime activist for pedestrian and bicycle safety, and I've done a lot of research. And if we start with, which I did, of course, the prevention is our main goal. The best means of prevention is education, and some of the things you mentioned are education, but how do you reach the greatest number of people with the least amount of cost? And there's only one way, and that's in our public schools. So I've become an advocate for legislation that would require an amendment to the education code that would require pedestrian and bicycle safety education and all the physical education classes. And I actually had one legislator who was willing to write that legislation. It was, if you remember, Noreen Evans back in 2013. She tried to do it, but the California Bike Coalition was opposed, basically because the bicycle manufacturers and the bike shops were opposed because there was a need to justify the reasons for that kind of education. And that was, of course, the number of people who were being injured or having traffic accidents. And somehow the message would be, they perceive it that it would be that bicycle riding was unsafe, and they didn't want that message transmitted. So Noreen Evans changed it, made it a resolution, and she could not get the California Bike Coalition to support that either. So our efforts were not met. So, and the justification that appealed to State Assembly member Noreen Evans was that we used to have before Proposition 13, we had driver education in all our secondary schools. It wasn't required, but just about every student would take it as part of their physical education class. They would have one semester of driver education, so they about their junior year, so they could get the driver's license. Okay, so almost every student in 1974, before 1974, knew the rules of the road, and we don't have that any longer. And I think the Bike Coalition, the Sonoma County Bike Coalition with the Safe Routes to School program has a very good program. However, they only reach a very small number of schools who volunteer to have them come in. And if we had every school asking the Sonoma County Bike Coalition to come in with their Safe Routes to School program, which is a great model, they wouldn't have the staff or the funding to do it. And so the only way to do it is with education funding, using existing school curriculum. If the education code was mandated by legislation, then the State Department of Education and the Superintendent of California for Education would develop a model curriculum that every school would have to, they wouldn't have to do the curriculum that the state developed, but they would have to have a curriculum of their own, or they can use the state model one, and they would have to do it through the physical education classes. Not all of them, but the state would decide which grade levels they would have the education. And I would like to see legislators be encouraged. And if you ask the public if they would like to see their children, parents of children, have pedestrian and safety education in the schools, you'll find they all will say they want it.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Bernie.
The message. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we hear you loud and clear, and I think yeah, I mean, it would be great to see the SRTS, the Safe Routes to School program, expanded to all schools.
Thank you. We're going to move to Brooke after. No? Brooke, if you'd like to unmute.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Brooke Brand, and I work for Providence Memorial Hospital with Trauma Services. My role is injury prevention, and so I am very engaged and very excited to be part of Vision Zero. So first I'd like to say it is National Passenger Safety Week. And just some statistics that 50% of injuries come from motor vehicle accidents are passengers. And a lot of times it's reckless behavior because they're not wearing a seatbelt. As far as trauma goes, motor vehicle crashes is our second largest mechanism of injury. And we've partnered with Vision Zero because their concepts and their processes are evidence-based and they're actually international. We've shared some trauma registry information, some data already with Vision Zero, and we are looking forward to continue a partnership with them because we feel that their work is so important. But the one thing that I wanted to talk about just briefly, sorry, that was a kitchen timer going off. There's a program that is available to Sonoma County called Impact Teen Driver. It's actually designed to change the culture of drivers from the novice teen, in our high schools, as Bernie was talking about, bringing more education about safe driving to our schools. There's actually programs to bring to middle schoolers so that they'll become good passengers, and that's setting the stage and changing the culture as they enter into novice drivers, that they're aware that we need to be driving with less distraction and less recklessness. So yeah, I'm very excited that we have Vision Zero in our county and our community. And as I said, it's the second largest mechanism of trauma injury to our county. And I'm looking forward to see how Vision Zero, that we can really socialize it and bring it to our community so that they're aware that we're really trying to improve the safety of our roadways and our pedestrians and our cyclists. So that's just my comment. Back to you, Quinn.
Yeah, thank you, Brooke. I did get an email forwarded from you, and I was really excited to hear about that you had seen this work happen in concurrence with some other Vision Zero programs. And I would love to get it into ours. So yeah, thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Brooke. We're going to move on to Bruce, who wasn't able to raise hand. I'm just going to unmute Bruce so you can speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
Oh, okay. So I appreciate this Vision Zero program, and there were a number of key topics that you can zero in on to help reduce deaths and injuries to people on the roads. I want to speak to something that maybe affects me in terms of what my concerns are based on where I live. Outside of city limits, in the West County. But I think my point here really pertains to anybody impacted in all kinds of city limits throughout the county. I've got involved with my county supervisor and the highway patrol and the county roads department on a few occasions in the last several years to try to get speed reduced. I live in in one of the rural byway roads, heading through West County. And we haven't had any fatalities, but we've had some near fatalities that are pretty scary. So when I looked at some of the responses that we had to some of the questions, one of the questions about choose up to 3, I remember seeing something like, made a note here at ticketing, only 45% of people thought that was important. So somebody earlier did speak to enforcement. And so, I'm hopeful of all the areas you have to deal with, like I say, in cities, having to do with bicyclers, pedestrians. I think enforcement is something I will hope that Vision Zero can can work hard on. You know, and particularly that the city police could be doing speed enforcement. County sheriffs could be doing speed enforcement. Where I live, I'm told, it's a CHP's job to do speed enforcement. And so I've yet to reach out to, you know, our elected sheriff to ask if he could put, you know, some deputies involved in doing speed enforcement. And I'd heard something saying that it doesn't create revenue. I think that's immaterial whether that creates revenue. It's about improving safety and applying our tax dollars to improving safety. Heck, half the time you pull over a speeder, somebody who is that inconsiderate in our communities to speed the way that they do. And I'm talking about on 40-mile-an-hour roads, 35-mile-an-hour roads. You know, the chances are, I think, likely pretty high that, you know, you have some people who are, you know, have a lot of criminal behavior, you know, and might have warrants out for them even if they were pulled over. But, you know, I just feel like, you know, like behavior training when, you know, you're raising your kids. Consequences are important to change people's behavior. And so you know, I saw the survey about citation data and about data on crashes. I'd like to see data developed on actual citations. If we could try to put some emphasis on enforcement and get our city police and get our county sheriffs to pitch in on enforcement. If it means some roads need to be reevaluated and the speed limit lowered by 5 miles an hour, so it makes it a little bit more realistic for law enforcement to give a ticket for speeding at a certain level, that might be what it takes.
Great.
But that's my point primarily.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce.
Thank you. Next, we're gonna have Neil.
Yes, hello. I'm in Cotati, and I guess I cycle to destinations. And, you know, Cotati Petaluma, Cotati Sebastopol, Cotati Santa Rosa. And I don't really see that reflected in the way that you're talking about things. I mean, people go from, particularly if you're trying to work, you're trying to cycle along and from one place to another. And I got to tell you, I have no intention of being a statistic. So I try and avoid the areas that are dangerous and won't cycle on certain roads and will go the long route round. So I sort of feel the way that you're looking at it is trivializing safety by just looking at the statistics. I mean, yes, I think the statistics should be an element of it in there, but the road network and where it's dangerous for all road users really needs to be brought into focus. So, I mean, I do appreciate that the Vision Zero is being talked about, but like Eris mentioned, I don't think the questions you were bringing up really dealt with some very concrete ways that have been seen to essentially make vehicles safer, make the roads safer for all users on the road. I know just within Cotati, there was a local road safety analysis, and certainly one junction that was out on Highway 116, they just didn't consider the safety of pedestrians. And the answer was, well, we just add it later, the way that pedestrians move through a junction and stuff. And I think all the evidence shows that that's not the case. So how there's a top-down sort of impression on the road designers, on the public works people, that safety needs to be a high element, and it just has to be career affecting if people aren't going to bring in elements of safety on the road when they design junctions. So it is a complex issue. The route from Santa Rosa to Sonoma town, I was just asking about that the other day, and a lot of that design isn't even in place at the moment, even though it's agreed to be there. And that isn't a route that normally I would use, but it is a route that could impact things regionally. So I'd like to see some way that you can actually let people express that a particular route has a sense of danger about it, that they're not very happy. I can tell you, I went across on the Smart Trail on Todd Road and crossing there, and I said, I will never do that again. Because the road is so narrow there. So again, it's appreciate that this discussion is going on, but how do you really allow people to express where there's a sense of danger on the roads, where there's a sense of stress before there's a statistic generated to, for us to all talk about and in this sort of forum. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Just to quickly address a couple of those. I think to answer your question, so first of all, as part of the survey that we did in the fall, we actually collected several thousand points that people put onto the map of areas where they felt particularly dangerous, either walking or cycling or driving. And we're definitely going to be incorporating that data into this plan. The other thing is that, you asked about how do we look at the data before there are crashes? And as part of that local road safety plan process that you were referencing, often, there is a systemic safety analysis component involved where, we can look at roadway characteristics that are often associated with crashes and use that data to sort of, preemptively identify corridors where crashes are likely to happen, even if they haven't yet happened. So I think there's definitely a path forward with respect to what the concerns that you were expressing, but yeah, thank you for raising those.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to Michael.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Well, thank you for the presentations, and thanks to everybody who's made comments. I'm a Santa Rosa resident and longtime cyclist. Cycling is my primary mode of transportation. And I'm also a climate activist. And I'm really passionate about all active transport. And when we really look at city design, cities are designed for cars and not people. And I think we really need to change from a car culture to a bike culture, at least to an active transport culture. In Santa Rosa, 42% of the landmass is dedicated to autos, streets, parking lots, bridges, etc. And I think we really need to make serious investment in safe and secure bike paths, and really to obviate a lot of the problems that came up, we need separated bike paths. I can tell you, riding on existing bike paths, you have to ride defensively. Even doing that, it doesn't account for a distracted driver who veers off a foot. And when a car hits a pedestrian or bicyclist, they're more likely not to survive. Cars hitting cars is bad, but it's more likely that they'll survive, particularly in urban areas. And with regards to separated bike paths, multiple surveys have shown in excess of 72% of the respondents feel that they ride their bikes more for utility and recreation if there were separated bike paths. And this has been shown cities around the states, multiple surveys in Santa Rosa and around Sonoma County. So I think we just need to reimagine and reconfigure how we look at things. And one last thing in terms of roundabouts and the way to design streets to slow traffic. If you look on Spring Street at 14th and 16th in Santa Rosa, you'll see two roundabouts, and they're too small. what you've created is people that can go virtually the same speed around them. And if you're a pedestrian walking on the other side, you're obscured by that island. So when we design things, we need to step back and look at the big picture, look deep, and look long-term. So we get design that incorporates from the bottom up people who are engaged in day-to-day riding, walking, whatever it may be, so that we don't totally have to rely on traffic engineers who are trained to do this. They're good with statistics, but it doesn't necessarily mean they ride a bike every day. So that's basically what I want to say, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Now we're going to move to Doug.
Hello, I'm Doug. I'm on the Santa Rosa Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Board. I am definitely one of those people that believe that cycling is the way to get around. Getting across Santa Rosa is faster on a bicycle. I actually proved that one time. Our meeting was moved across town, and I had one of the board members offered to give me a ride and pick up. I said, no, I'll beat you there. The reason is I could get on the creek trail, and you don't have to stop at all the stoplights when you do that. So I beat him by 5 or 10 minutes. So point of that story is to show you how the class 1 bike lanes, off-road separated bike lanes are way more efficient, way safer. Definitely the way to go. I mean, I understand we can't have those everywhere, but whenever possible, that's the way to do it. And a good point while I'm on it is the creek trails are very useful. I'm an advocate of using those, and you will notice that they're more in the plan for that. But my main point is I was hit by a car about 2 months ago, just recently, left for dead on the side of the road. Had no idea what happened. I'm lucky to be here. Let's put it that way. I'm still fully functional. Some memory issues, and that's about it. But it was on Marquess Station Road. I saw the guy coming up behind me, and I got down to the bottom of the little hill there, and I'm like, where is that guy? You know, he should be coming up, he should be past me by now. And that's the last thing I remember. So it's a straight road, no traffic. The guy ran into me. So there's 2 explanations for that. One is he hit me on purpose. The other is distracted driving. So you probably guess my point here is distracted driving. You can be drunk, you can be impaired on some other level. If you're paying attention, you're going to be safer than if you're not paying attention. So then my point is not that I'm 100%, 104,000% against drunk driving. Don't get me wrong there. But my point is distracted driving is the biggest threat to safety on the roads. People, there's videos in cars nowadays, okay? Cell phones, videos, kids, you name it. If we could eliminate distracted driving, we would probably eliminate half of the accidents that happen, half of the crashes. That's my point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Doug.
The next question we'll take from Emmett.
Yeah, hi everyone. Emmett here with the Sonoma County Climate Mobilization. Thank you for this presentation and to everyone who put a lot of work into this project. My question is, if I'm not mistaken, Tool Design has also done work on rapid implementation of bike networks in some cities, including like some work in San Jose, and the idea being kind of standing up an entire bike network in a city in this matter of months rather than years. And I've seen that there's data from these projects around increase in bicycling. What I'm wondering is if there's been any data collected that showed a decrease in injuries or fatalities associated with those kind of projects, because I think Santa Rosa would be a good candidate for trying that out. Thanks a bunch.
Thanks, Emmett. Yeah, to answer your question, yeah, there definitely is data, and you know, a lot of times what we actually see, which is really interesting, is that you know, it reduces crashes and injuries and fatalities, not just for bikes, but often for all users. And sometimes it doesn't even decrease for bikes because the amount of bikes you get using the roadway might increase. And so you might actually see a few more bike crashes, but the overall crashes will go down because the bike facility actually calms traffic and, you know, reduces conflicts between users. So it's an interesting question. All right, so it looks like we don't have any more questions. I guess speak now or forever hold your peace. No, I'm just kidding. We have plenty of more time for comments. Okay, well, I will just one more time reiterate that we will be sharing with the participants of this workshop the next draft of this Vision Zero action plan that should be going out around the beginning of February. And then there'll be a 2-week comment period where we'll be welcoming, accepting, encouraging comments on that draft. So hope to hear more from all of you. And yeah, thank you so much again for being here tonight and sharing all of your valuable perspective and insight. Good night.